Back on the air with Extra Points, Guerin, Emig, and Bill Haisten, Tulsa World Sports columnist, here to talk football once more. Going to try to get to some preps a little later in the show, Bill, but we do want to load up on college. I'm outside on purpose this week, not just because I think it's a cute backdrop, but because I need the serenity, man. I've got wind chimes and blowing tree leaves behind me because it's the week after an OU football loss.
Right.
People once again freaking out, losing their heads and their minds. It was unexpected. OU's 41-34 defeat against Kansas State. And yet, I don't think anyone thought this was going to be a playoff team. I don't think, no matter how good they looked against Nebraska. As we transition to what's coming for the Sooners and their matchup with TCU, how big of a moment is this for Brent Venables as a head coach? What do you think?
Well, if you think about OU's history and what is the stat, Guerin, only once since Bob Stoops was hired has the program lost in 2 consecutive conference games, right?
Mm-hmm.
2 years ago, Iowa State and K-State and Iowa State. And so there's this amazing history of all OU teams over the last quarter century recovering from getting their hearts broken, right? And this is the full gamut of OU teams, from the great ones to 2013, 2014 level teams. So it's very important. It's as it pertains to Brent's being a first-year head coach. Yeah, it's important to go to Fort Worth and to recover immediately and impressively, and to shut down TCU, and to first of all, last week wasn't Dillon Gabriel's fault, and I've heard some of that. Come on now, I don't think he's committed a turnover yet this season, right? So that's pretty good, and complete 67% without a turnover. But the tone was set last week, Guerin, when they converted 3rd and 12, like in the first possession of the game. They convert 3rd and 12 and they go down and score, and then there's the infamous 3rd and 16 later in the game.
Right.
So, yeah, it's important for OU to sustain its identity as a team that doesn't get beat twice, and for them to go to Fort Worth, be infinitely better defensively, and because they were good enough to win last week on offense. They weren't great, but they were good enough to win. So, yeah, that to me is the storyline of the week is does OU do what it did consistently for the most part with Lincoln and always with Bob, is to recover from a loss, and because every loss is a surprise. Every loss at OU is unexpected.
Right.
That's the nature of it.
Right. Well, I don't know what's going to happen, because I don't know what's going to happen in any game in the Big 12 anymore. I really don't. I no clue.
Oh, no doubt.
I mean, you talk about a league that is just 1 to 10 indecipherable. We'll see how the Sooners respond. If Gabriel continues to play as he does, I think they're going to be okay. I'm even more interested to see what happens in Waco, because that is up till now, Bill, this is the game of the year in the league. It's Baylor, Oklahoma State. A rematch of last year's Big 12 championship. 2 teams playing pretty well right now, playing 2 different styles, but both with equal effectiveness outside of the way Baylor closed the game at BYU. I think they should be undefeated still. They should have won that game in Provo. They didn't, but they look the part, is what I'm saying, when they went to Iowa State and beat the Cyclones last week. Any inkling as to how good and competitive and physical and just tiring a game we're going to get in Waco this weekend?
It's so important for OSU because obviously the strength of OSU's defense is up front, and it's so important for them to be great on first down all day. And then, and by great I mean just push Baylor to 3rd and long, 3rd and 7, and beyond that, so you can turn your pressure people loose and really make it uncomfortable for Blake Shapen. And because if they consistently go for 4 to 6 yards, on first down, and the Baylor will be fine with just crunching away in that regard all day. And then Baylor, their run defense is it's the best in the league, I think, isn't it? It's got to be statistically and eye test and all of it. I mean, they really. So this is a real Spencer Sanders game for sure.
Yep.
With regard to playmaking,
Yep.
he needs to have a game that kind of resembles what Adrian Martinez did the other day in Normal, running it and throwing it and protecting it before all else, protecting it. Because
Right.
I still can't believe what I saw from Adrian Martinez. But if there's a Mount Rushmore of opposition performances over the last 25 years at Owen Field, that Martinez is probably on it. One of the 4 or 5 best visiting team performances of the last 25 years at Owen Field. He was great. And, there's a part of you that feels good for the guy because of all the turbulence he experienced at Nebraska. So,
Sure.
But yeah, it's a classic matchup. OSU, it's so interesting to reflect on Gundy's first 3 years as the head coach at Oklahoma State, and they could not get over the hump with regard to winning on the road, Guerin. They would blow leads, or they would come up just short, or they just couldn't get it done on the road. And now they have become a really, really good road program. They've won 5 of their last 6, I think, overall on the road. Mike's record on the road overall over the body of his run there as the head guy, it's like 20 games over 500, which if you had told me that in 07 that he was destined to become a great coach, or that his program would have a great track record in road games, I wouldn't have believed it, just because I hadn't seen it. And now, so going to Waco, that's been a tough assignment for both of the Bedlam schools. Well, heck, for everybody in the Big 12. I mean, Baylor has its hiccup seasons, like its transition seasons. They're not afraid to throw out a 2-10 when they're transitioning from one coach to the next. But boy, they recover quickly. It's so impressive of all places to have done that, Baylor. But yeah, I'm fascinated by this game. Honestly, Guerin, the storylines of all 3 state schools, state schools games this weekend it's in the fact that the games are staggered, so that anybody who wants to watch, if you want to watch all 3, you can without disruption. And it's the Saturday of the year so far here in the state for football people.
Yeah, it might be, but by the end of the year. Yeah, you touched on game 3. That's Tulsa hosting Cincinnati. I got to think, Bill, that the wild card, of course, is who's going to quarterback the Hurricane.
Right.
Dillon Montgomery leave you no hints of that this week between Davis Brin and Braylon Braxton. Braxton settled into the game a little bit in Oxford last week, did throw a big touchdown pass to draw the Hurricane close down the stretch. But he's going to feel a heck of a lot more comfortable against the Bearcats defense with Brin as the trigger man. If it isn't Davis Brin, do we take the second half of TU Ole Miss last week defensively for the Hurricane and translate that into a hopeful situation on Saturday? Well, it's not Desmond Ridder they're defending anymore at quarterback for the Bearcats.
You should never invest too much in a spring game, but I did see Braxton play in the spring and was really impressed. And so now when he got off the bus at Ole Miss the other day, he wasn't thinking, I'm sure he's prepared to play, but was he really, really prepared to play? Was he really thinking I'm going to play? No, probably not. Even though that's his job, is to be ready. But are you really ready if you're the backup quarterback for that moment? And an SEC venue, no less. So I'm going to be really interested to see Braxton after a full week of classroom reps, taking the iPad home reps, taking the iPad home and studying reps, every rep with the ones, because I'm presuming he's the guy. I'll say this for Phillips' program. their last two games with SEC opposition, the two Mississippi schools, Guerin, they went jaw to jaw with those guys physically. TU is at such a different place today than it was 10 years ago in Conference USA with regard to bigger, faster, stronger, and more of them. And NFL, obviously, look at the draft results lately.
Right. Sure.
Everybody was sickened by, Bren getting dinged and not being able to finish what he started, because you might have seen a classic and you might have seen a TU upset. We'll never know. But I like Braxton. I'm not saying he's going to beat Cincinnati, but I do like his skill set. And with a full week of preparation to be the guy, he's certainly going to be better than he was last week, you would think. At home, too. Great ball game for TU, and I can't wait to watch really all three of these ball games. But, man, it's just and if I had to like roll out picks, I was thinking about this morning. I mean, I'm going to pick OU because it's OU to win in Fort Worth, and I'm going to pick. I just think Sanders is due after 7 interceptions in 2 games. Baylor, don't you think, Guerin? Don't you think Sanders is really either he's going to shoulder the responsibility of being great, or he's going to put so much pressure on himself that he throws.
That's the question. Yeah. And Gundy said it himself this week, Bill. I asked him about Sanders putting too much on himself, given what happened a year ago with the 7 picks. And of course, Mike's going to say, no, he said, we don't worry about that. He knows that, he got hit on a couple of the throws, which he did. There were a couple of those throws could have been caught by OSU receivers. That also is true. And yet, if you're around Sanders at all, you realize that how much he expects of himself and how self-critical he becomes, that it's going to be natural for him to want to grab the bit in this game and prove himself. And you compound that with the fact that Gundy on Monday even said he's still a risk taker. His interception number is just 1 up to this point. He looks more effective and confident in the offense than he ever has, and yet that's just the way he quarterbacks. He'll try to squeeze the ball in the coverage he shouldn't. Still, you can't do that against Dave Aranda's defense.
You know what, though? He should be better with the ball because he's the same age or even maybe a little older than like 2 or 3 starters in the NFL right now. Talking about Sanders.
Yeah, right.
I mean, he is a veteran quarterback.
For sure.
I think you hate to throw it all on one guy, but this is Spencer Sanders' game.
I think it is. Yeah.
Win. And that's the bottom line for OSU because they have a defense that can help them win a game this year. They don't have a defense that can win a game flat out.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you need Sanders to be special.
Yep. Well, it should be a lot of fun. I can't wait for really all 3. Like you said, all 3 games are delicious for different reasons.
Oh, yeah.
I wanted to ask you, this is cool stuff.
And Arkansas, Alabama the same weekend, Guerin. Holy moly. I mean, we're surrounded by good.
Man, how about the Razorbacks should have won that game Saturday.
Bro, have you ever seen a kick behave like that? Have you ever seen a field goal hit the top of an upright? Straight up, straight down. It was
that was you get out 14-0 like they did too, right?
Oh, I know. But when they got that, that whole evening was rife with weirdness because that game's going on at the same time as the OU game, right? Yeah. And K-State bolts out. Like I said, like the 4th play of the game, they convert 3rd and 12. I'm like, really, 3rd and 12, and then they score, and then they score again, and I'm like, okay, now we got drama. But even then, I didn't think OU would lose that game. I thought it would be just a classic gut check, and they'd find a way to win at the end. And boy, that was you let Deuce Vaughn and Adrian Martinez run for 260 yards.
I know.
260, roughly. And then you let Martinez throwing the ball was fantastic.
Yep.
So, yeah, it's the 25-year trend for OU to recover, play well. In a lot of these games too, they've just beaten the crap out of pretty decent opponents on a bunch of occasions after a loss. And this is kind of one of those games to me. I don't just kind of expect them to win. I want to see them play well and kind of hammer TCU, because
I don't know if they can. Yeah, well, the problem is, Bill, if they don't defend better, Zach Evans is no longer TCU's feature back. He's with Ole Miss. TU got a dose of him last week in Oxford, right? But they've reloaded at running back. They've got the best receivers they've had in a long time, certainly since Boykin was the quarterback. And Max Duggan, I mean, we're the Big 12. You got Sanders, you got Gabriel, you got Jalen Daniels, who may be the national story in terms of quarterbacks in football this year. They're just zipping along. No one's really noticed how good and efficient Duggan has been since Chandler Morris went down with an injury.
Right.
So this is not a TCU. This isn't, Gary Patterson late 2000s offense being played at TCU.
No, I've been wondering, but Patterson has a statue for a reason. He was amazing for that school.
Right.
But if you could somehow combine Patterson toughness with Sonny Dykes offense, what does it look like?
Yeah.
I just think at this point, if you look at OU's best 40 players and compare it to TCU's best 40, even though TCU is loaded with NFL receivers, they got 3 guys who are projected to end up in the NFL.
Right. Right.
But you counter that by making it really difficult for Duggan. You have to, just like OSU's got to make it difficult for Blake Shapen. They got to make him uncomfortable, and they got to make Duggan uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Difference is Duggan can scoot a little bit, although he's not. I mean, the stats I've seen, I don't think he's quite as engaged in the run game as he was the last couple.
No, I don't think not to this point. But we saw what Martinez did.
So. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, no, I was at Boone Pickens when Brock Purdy ran out there for his first appearance, right. And he ran OSU to death that day. So, no, it's a sensational triple header, quadruple header, really. I'll put Alabama and Arkansas in there, although I don't know how to feel about that game either. I mean, I don't know that I trust Arkansas's offense to keep up, and I just don't. But with all due respect, that man, they should have beaten A&M. Mm-hmm. Dad, you do all that work and you get the ball in the middle of the field with a very makeable field goal. Yep. And didn't they miss a PAT as well? I think. Anyway.
Well, I don't know that. I would just say that as important as Sanders is going to be for OSU against Baylor, maybe magnify that with KJ Jefferson for Arkansas this weekend against. Talk about a quarterback that you're asking to make a ton of plays in a game like that, especially coming off an uneven performance.
Right.
The guy against Stadium. Real quick, prep football. I want to hit on this. We've written some things about some TPS programs this year. Levy Adcock doing some really cool stuff at Will Rogers. You wrote a very interesting piece on Booker T and the numbers game that they're fighting over there with Coach Jonathan Brown. They got a big one right with Stillwater over at SC Williams Friday night. But another story I don't want people to miss is what's happening at Central with Kip Shaw. Right, that is I've noticed that they're turning some heads.
Yeah,
with regard to their start over home of the Braves.
Right. Sometimes you'll see a program that has struggled for a while and they'll win a couple of games early, and it's a nice story, right? Mm-hmm. Nice story. Good for them. It's a good for them kind of story.
Right.
This is beyond that. Central's really good. And I talked to Coach Shaw last night, and I'll be at their practice here in about 40 minutes. And he said, everybody knows it's a challenge for TPS schools to keep special players from leaving. And he said, our guys have stayed, and we have some really good ones. I mean, they have They have a kid who's 5'8", about 220. And you know what they do with him on speed on passing downs is they plug him in over the nose in their speed package, and nobody can block him. Nobody can block him.
Wow.
And of course, they have you know what they have? They do have a kid named Guess, Guess, and I'm kind of curious if he might be. I'll find out today if he might be related somehow to Artie Guess, who played at
I
OU
remember him. Yeah.
30-something years ago.
Right.
But this kid's 6'4", 225 edge rusher, and his name's Aiden Guess. I guess because it's an A first name, I'm thinking maybe Artie Guess related. I don't know, but I will find out. But 6'4", 225 edge rusher, and he's a junior, and he's on the verge of becoming, a significant target for some schools in recruiting. They have a veteran quarterback, Jamon Silas, really good player. They are legit. Anyway, they came this close to beating their top-ranked vertebrates last week, that close. And so here they take a 3-1 record in this week to a game with Cassia at Central. So, and it's one of about 7 or 8 games at that level of intrigue going in for the weekend. So it's I wouldn't say it's an epic high school weekend of matchups, but it's really good. There's a lot of good games.
Yeah.
And then Bixby goes for 53 in a row.
Yeah.
I just for the sake of reminding myself, because I had forgotten, the national record for longest high school win streak is De La Salle 20 years ago at 151. So
just a third.
He's like 8 or 7.5, 8 years away from that.
That's crazy, man. You'd think that they'd be on the heels after 50 some odd.
151 in a row.
Golly.
Isn't that nuts? Yeah, but
not saying it's not doable, but that's still
somebody did it, so it's doable. I'm just saying. I mean, yeah, but Bixby's only a third of the way there, if that's what they're shooting for now. But
right.
Yeah, it's Booker T Stillwater is a really, really interesting game, and that could be.
I take it the Pioneers pretty. What if there was such a thing, touchdown favorite, maybe more than that even? What do you think?
Oh yeah, I would say 7.5. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
But this could be a season-changing game for Booker T. It sure could, and everybody in 6A2 is scared to death of Booker T. I picked Stillwater in the preseason to win it. They're beautifully coached. They've got a veteran quarterback. They don't make a lot of penalties. Really, really talented teams like Sand Springs and Choctaw are so frequently penalized. You can't. It's mind blowing. Sand Springs last 2 games, 31 penalties.
Man,
yeah, Bobby Klink's is got to be just keeping him up at night. 31 penalties, 4 15-yard infractions in the fourth quarter of a close game with Muskogee the other day. Hey, Muskogee, there's a story for you, brother. Oh my gosh, they're good.
Yeah, you saw them last week. Yeah.
They're this close to being. I would even say right now, depending on the draw, I could easily see them going to the semifinals. I don't know that they're ready to win state in that class, but oh my Lord, they have an athlete, a lefty quarterback named his nickname is Bird, except it's spelled B-Y-R-D because he looked like a baby bird when he was a baby. That's so somebody nicknamed him Bird, except they spell it B-Y-R-D, which is kind of cool. You know where he was Saturday? He was in Lubbock as a guest of Texas Tech.
He saw a good game.
Yeah, he did. And he's been to Penn State. No, I'm getting my kid. No, he has been to Penn State. Penn State, OU, OSU, and now Texas Tech. So
okay.
Not necessarily to play quarterback, apparently, but he's only a 10th grader. And I say if he gets to 6'3", 190, I would leave him at the quarterback position. He's got special arm talent, and he's a stud. And if he doesn't play quarterback for somebody, he'll play in the defensive backfield and be a really good player for somebody. But yeah, Muskogee and Travis Hill are
sure
at midseason. Well, crap, they're unbeaten. I mean, you can't do any better than that. And to win at Sand Springs is not easy, and then they pulled it off. And so, but we'll see. We'll see. I hope by Halloween that Jinx is as healthy as Jinx can possibly be. I want them to be healthy as they can be today, but I'm just saying realistically, I hope
Right. No, I know.
end of October they really get it together with their roster, and everybody who can play will play, because you got Jinx Bixby final game of the regular season, and I'm hopeful we can see a classic that night. But poor Jinx, I've never seen any team torn to pieces like by injury as Jinx has been, and every week I just hope for the best for those kids to come back, and because it just doesn't feel right to not have a healthy, fully loaded Jinx in the semifinals of the state tournament, and that's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah. Where are you going to be Friday night?
I didn't even decide that until midnight last night. I'm going to go watch Collinsville because there's it's interesting. I heard a radio piece in Oklahoma City, and they were breaking down Class 5A, and like the 9th team they mentioned was Collinsville. So, oh yeah, there's Collinsville. Collinsville has the second longest win streak in the state, and they are the defending 5A champion. And they've got it going again, and they just keep rolling along, and they don't seem to get a whole lot of acclaim or respect. And well, I shouldn't say respect. They don't seem to get a lot of love as a team that has a real chance to repeat. And so I thought, I'm just going to go watch them play Bishop Kelly and see what that looks like, and see what Collinsville 22, how it compares to Collinsville 21, because they were great last year. So, and 5A is the deepest, most stacked class in the state, and we'll see. But yeah, I think I'm gonna go watch Collinsville.
All right, you got
game in Collinsville in 20 years, so I need to go up there anyway.
You haven't been to Collinsville in 20 years.
The
last time you saw a game there?
No,
who did you see?
Not for a football game. I've been there for interviews and basketball and barbecue. But I have not been there on a Friday night for a football game in 20 years. I saw a Sky Took Collinsville game like 20 years ago. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, load up on that. Enjoy the tailgate. They'll probably feed you some burgers or dogs or brats or whatever you want. I'm going to go to Waco to see Baylor and OSU Saturday. Keep an eye on TU Cincinnati. Keep an eye on OU TCU. Keep an eye on Arkansas and the Hogs' quest to take down mighty Alabama. Bill, you and I will talk again next week. Hey, appreciate everyone reading us, watching us, listening to us. The podcast is something you can catch every week, courtesy of the Tulsa World. Just get a hold of Google, Apple, or Spotify. They'll take care of you from there.